students, in this video we are going to cover chapter 4 of class 8. The name of the chapter is the colonial era in India. Okay, that means when the Britishers came, so what were the impacted on that and what are the legacy Europeans in India. Okay, so we are going to cover all these in this particular chapter. Okay, so with this intro, let's start the chapter with the first topic. We have the age of colonialism. Okay, so what is colonialism actually is? Okay, so colonialism is a practice by which a powerful country controls another country of region, exploiting its resources, economy and people of its own benefit. This idea is not new. Okay, it goes back thousands of years. Even in ancient times, powerful empires captured other regions. Later, during the early centuries of the Common Era, the spread of religions like Christianity, Islam also brought new land under this influence. Okay, so colonialism is that practice in which a powerful rulers rule on another country or region in order to exploit the resources and gain profit of their own country by using other countries' resources. Okay, so this is a kind of harsh treatment with those peoples. Okay, this is called colonialism. Okay, now European expansion. Okay, so when Europeans came to India, so he also practiced this colonialism and applied this on India. So let's study how did this happen. Now, this is age of colonialism refers to Europeans' expansion starting from 15th century when countries like Spain, Portugal, Britain, France, Netherlands built colonies in Africa. Okay, that means these colonies started building colonialism in Africa. Okay, now Africa, Asia, and America, Australia. That means these areas are also getting exploited by these countries. Now, they conquered these regions through military campaigns, often massacre or slaving native peoples. Okay, and by using these kind of ways, they apply colonialism on that. Now, what are the reasons of colonialism? Because European powers compete for global influence, racing to control more land for political power. Okay, so you can say that more political power. This is able to rule on that. Colonies give access to new resources, markets, and trade routes, often through plundering local wealth. Okay. And this is why they are able to snatch the resources of other regions. Converting people to Christianity was a major goal, along with exploring unknown lands to learn about geography and nature. Okay, so these three ways which these powerful countries used to snatch other countries' resources. Now, what was the impact on colonized regions? Now, we have listed out what are the reasons of this, and now what impact actually happened. So, first, colonialism claimed by they both progress with a civilizing mission, but often called native people, which is savage or primitive. Okay, so in order to they will give progress to those things, they get access of those. Now, in reality, colonized regions lost independence. Okay, that means those people who are under this who are facing all this will completely lose their independence and had their resources exploited by these powerful rulers, and traditional way of living destroyed and faced foreign cultural values. Okay, because you all also know when Britishers came to India, they started imposing their own rules and cultures on Indians, and with this Indians started losing their own culture and beliefs and their own traditions. Okay, the same happened here also. Okay, now Europeans in India. Okay, when Europeans came in India, so these which you will study is the intro that how does the countries face, and this is not about India. There are so many countries who have faced this kind of harsh treatment. Okay, so let's study that how India particularly impacted on this. First topic we have India's pre-colonial prosperity. Now, India traded with Greeks and Romans over 2000 years ago, exporting spices, cottons, ivory, gems. Okay, now until 16th century, India was a major economic and cultural power due to its tremendous resources. Now, contributing about 1/4 of the world's GDP alongside China, as estimated by economist Angus Madison. European travelers from 6th century described India as flourishing, noting its strong manufacturing, diverse culture, and widespread trade network. India's wealth trade is a tempting target of European colonial powers. Okay, now India's wealth was increasing day by day. Its exporting system was also very good due to rich of these resources of spices, cotton, and all. And with this, Europeans colonial powers started getting attracted towards India, and this is how they came to India. Okay, for trading purpose. Now, the Portuguese commerce and atrocities. The Portuguese explorer and navigator Vasco da Gama was the who invented India. Okay, you can say arrived in Kappan. near Kozhikode, Canada. That means he was the first person who put his land on India, and the way he visited is Canada in May 1498, marking the start of European colonization in India. Who initially welcomed his aggressive actions like seizing, torturing, and killing Indian merchants and bombarding Calicut during his second voyage, starting relations with local rulers. Okay, that means he was seizing and torturing the Indian merchants in order to get indigo and other resources. The Portuguese captured key ports including Goa in 1510, which became their colonial capital. Okay, and with this they made Goa as colonial capital and set up trading posts along Malabar and Coromandel coast. They enforced a cartas system, which is a pass system requiring ships in the Arabian Sea to buy Portuguese permits, using those without permits to control the spice trades for nearly a century. In Goa, the Portuguese set up the Inquisitions in 1560, persecuting Hindus, Muslims, Jews, and Christians, converts suspected of following their original faiths, forcing conversions and destroying Hindu temples, with the Inquisition lasting until 1812. Okay, so what they're trying to say that they also banned trading persons. They started implementing a carta system, which is a pass system, basically, that those who have a pass will allowed to enter, otherwise they have to face problems. Okay, as you have seen. Okay, they also started using persecuting religions also, and started destroying Hindu temples. Clear? Okay, next important topic is the Dutch commerce and competition. Clear? Now, the Dutch came to India in the early 1600s. Okay. Now, unlike the Portuguese, they were mainly interested in trade, especially in spices. Okay. And India was full of spices and were very known for farming. So they set up the Dutch East India Company and built trading posts in many places. Clear? Now, on the west coast, on the west coast of India, they traded from Surat. Okay. I'm sure you know about this place, Bharuch and Cochin, which is Kochi now, and on the east coast from the Nagapattinam and Masulipatnam, which is now called Machilipatnam. Okay, their strongest base was in the Malabar region of Kerala, where they took control of several trading centers from the Portuguese. Clear? Now, Portuguese was very interested in trading of spices, so they started capturing the first east and west these parts of India. Okay, where they took control of several trading centers from the Portuguese. Okay, this is how they started exploiting the resources. Now, the Dutch powers in India did not last long. It weakened greater after 1741. Okay, when army of Travancore led by King Marthanda Varma defeated the Dutch in the Battle of Collegial. Okay, that means in the Battle of Collegial, Dutch was defeated. The French colonial ambitions. The French arrived later, establishing a trade post in Surat in 1668 and Pondicherry, which is now Puducherry in 1674, where the East India Company planned a French empire in India. Governor General Dupleix introduced new method of colonial control that the British later copied. Okay, he trained Indian soldiers in European style fighting, creating well organized infantry soldiers known as sepoys. Okay, Dupleix also used a plan of indirect rule supporting certain Indian princes during succession disputes, so they would rule as its allies and follow French interest. Okay, so what they're trying to say that French later arrived in the time period of in the place of Surat in the time period of 1668. Okay, which East India Company where planned a French empire in India. Okay, there was a plan of Dupleix, which is the general of East India Company, implemented a new method which was later adopted by East India Company. After that, they are saying that they started treating the soldiers of Indians in the form of in the style of European style. Okay, this is how Indians were losing their own identity and establishing European style. Okay, because they were imposing that thing on Indian soldiers. Clear? Now, the French plans to rule India were stopped during Carnatic Wars. Okay, which were fought between France and Britain. At the first, French led by Dupleix, which is the general of East India Company, won some battles and even captured the area of Madras, okay, which is now in Chennai, in 1746. But over time, they lost to the British and their control was reduced to Pondicherry and a few small settlements. Like the Dutch and unlike Portuguese, the French colonial powers did not much intervene in India's social and religious life. One red exception was in 1748 when Dupleix ordered the destruction of large Veda Pushpar temple in Pondicherry. He did this after repeated requests from local Jesus priest and his wife to show the power of Christianity. Apart from this, such incidents, the French mostly focused on a small amount of trade in India. Okay, that means one exception is given where General Dupleix ordered for the destruction of large Vedapurishram temple, okay, because Egyptians were repeatedly requesting them to show the power of Christianity, okay, and apart from them, French mostly focused on a small amount of trade in India, okay, and this is why French plans to rule India were stopped during the Carnatic Wars, okay. Now enter the British. Okay, now finally after Dutch and French, finally British entry is gonna to start. Now the British East India Company started as trade, used clever strategy to become rulers dominating India for nearly 2 centuries. Okay, this is very important. Highlight this thing in your mind that Britishers did not keep India to seize to become the king of India and so on. He came India in order to do trading. So, okay, his only the East India Company only purpose to do trading in the country of India. Okay. Okay, now he started adopting very clever strategies, okay, of rulers to dominate their powers on Indians and and so that Indians would do whatever Britishers want. Now, from traders, that I already explained you that Britishers came to India for the purpose of trading. Okay, now we are going to study that how Britishers become traders to rulers. Okay, this is very important point in your chapter. The British ruled India for nearly 2 centuries through the English East India Company. Okay, this is important. They ruled nearly 2 centuries, with starting as a trading group. Okay, already I will again explain you. They came India in the purpose of trading, for the purpose of trading, but became an imperial power. Okay, which has no any control. Establishment with a royal charter from the Queen Elizabeth, the company had special powers like raising a private army, but initially acted as traders to avoid suspicion. In the 7th century, they set up trading posts in Surat, Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta with little resistance as local rulers welcomed foreign trade. Clear? A common practice in India. These smaller trading posts hit the company's bigger plan to gain control over India. Okay, that means they started their purpose with the smaller tradings, and Indian rulers were very, we can say that they were not that much clever about how to deal with foreigners. In fact, they welcomed the Britishers initially in order to start their own tradings. Okay, because this is their culture. Okay, because this was happening for many years, people come for trade, so Indians welcome those. Okay, but with passage of time, they started getting control over India. Clear? Now the strategy of divide and rule. The Britishers pretended to be traders while building ties with local rulers, offering military help to some against their rivals, and becoming powers brokers in India politics. They used the divide and rule policy, exploiting rivalries between rulers or disputes within royal families and encouraging tensions between religious communities. The Battle of Plassey, which happened in 1757, is a famous example of British strategy in India. Tensions rose between Sirajuddaula, who was the Nawab of Bengal, and East India Company led by Robert Clive. Okay, that means Robert Clive was the ruler of East India Company of that time. Clive made a secret deal with Mir Zafar, the Nawab's army commander, promising to make him the new Nawab if he betrayed Sirajuddaula. The battle took place at Plassey, about 150 km north of today's Kolkata. Some French troops helped Nawab. Okay, so let me explain you this entire story in short. That Mir Zafar was the secret dealer. That means the East India Company and Sirajuddaula were gonna to fight with each other. Okay, but Mir Zafar, who was the main person of the king, betrays the king. Okay, because East India Company dealt with Mir Zafar. He said that after defeated Sirajuddaula, Mir Zafar will become the next king of Bengal. Okay, and with this deal, Mir Zafar agreed with East India Company, and they betrayed their own king, Sirajuddaula, and this is how East India Company won in this battle. Okay, but after, when Mir Zafar became Nawab, the East India Company started imposing so many rules on them. Okay, because East India Company never wanted to become the Nawab of any place. He wanted a puppet ruler. A puppet ruler is something who do whatever a East India Company wants. And this is why they agreed with the deal that Mir Zafar will become next Nawab. Okay, but later Mir Zafar also realizing that this rules is not good. Old powers is under the control of East India Company, not us. Okay, this is the entire story which is written over here. Clear? Okay, now the doctrine of lapse allowed the British to take over many princely states. Okay, let me explain you what this doctrine of lapse actually is. In this ruler, if the king of anyone's kingdom dies, okay, then which helped them expand their see, doctrine of lapse is a kind of useless treaty, okay, which helped Britishers to expand their territory. Okay, this policy angered many Indians and was one of the major reasons behind the rebellion of 1857. Okay, we will study what actually this is. Okay, now this is that which due to which Rani Lakshmi Bai also fought with Britishers. Okay, because he disagreed to follow this policy. Now another British policy was subsidiary allies. Okay, under the system, a British residence representative stayed in the court of Indian rulers. Okay, now British residents stayed in the court of Indian rulers, claiming to protect the state from internal or external threats. In return, the ruler had to pay. British troops could handle foreign relations only through British. Although it looked like a princely state remained independent, this policy actually gave the British real control while making Indian rulers pay for their own loss of power. Okay, this is how the subsidiary alliance, okay, doctrine of lapse, in this lapse also, whoever's kings dies in a kingdom, their half territory will become under the control of Britishers. Okay, but Rani Lakshmi Bai denied this, so this was also one of the harsh policy. Another is subsidiary alliance, where ruler loses its own independence to control the kingdom, and entire control comes under Britishers. Okay, now from paradise to hell. Okay, now we have seen that how harshest treaties were opposed by Britishers to Indians, and many Indians would disagree with those. Okay, and in the Nawab of in the battle of Nawab of Bengal between Sirajuddaula and East India Company dealt with Mir Jafar to win in this battle. Okay, now from paradise to hell. Devastating famines. Okay, so British policies led to devastating famines and drained Indians' wealth, turning a prosperous land to one of poverty and suffering. Devastating famines. After winning at Plassey, Battle of Plassey, the East India Company gained revenue collections right in Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha, India's richest regions. Clive described Bengal, in particular, the paradise of the earth. The company's agents collected high taxes while investing little in governance or development, causing several problems for the people. The Bengal famine in this time period worsened 2 years of crop failure, was caused by harsh tax demands of farmers who had to pay cash regardless harvest conditions, leading to about 10 million deaths, nearly one third of Bengal's population. The company even raised land taxes during famine, a cruelty criticized by Indian leaders and some British officials like W. Hunter, who described people eating leaves and selling their children due to starvation. Key observers from this account. Okay, that means you can see that how harshly Britishers treat India, that in spite their crops was destroyed of 2 years, still Britishers were started imposing more and more tax on farmers. Okay, high tax on farmers, and the famine was such expanded that that people started even selling their own children. Okay, this is why it is known as Bengal famine. Okay, which is in the period of 1770 to 1772. Clear? Now, the Great Famine 1876 to 1871 killed up to 8 million, mostly in the Deccan Plateau, as some Indian traders hoarded stocks for profit, and Britishers exported about 1 million tons of rice years British during the famine. Now, the Britishers' free market policy, that means they feed India as a free market to exploit anything, which avoided controlling food prices, worsened famines with Viceroy Lord Lytton ordering no government interference in food prices during the famine, which we have seen in the Bengal famine case. Okay, now between 12 and over 12 waves of famines occurring during British rule, killing an estimate 50 to 100 people, comparable to World War II deaths. Okay, that means in the time of Britishers there was such a harsh conditions of Indians was that they did not have anything to eat. Tax was imposing day by day. People selling their own children. So many people are dying due to hunger. Okay, that means this number of dead people are compared to the number of dead people in World War II. Okay, of Indians only. Okay, so this is the policies of Britishers which we have seen in this particular topic. Okay, now let's go to the next topic, that is the drain of India's wealth. Okay, as mentioned earlier, the Britisher colonial policies was built on economic exploitations. Okay, we have seen of India. Okay, In 1895, the American historian and political thinker Brooks Adams observed, very soon after Battle of Plaza, the Bengal plunder began to arrive in London after effects appeared to have instantaneous for all authorities again and industrial revolutions began with the year. Possibly since world began, no investor has ever preferred independent Indian plunder. Okay, so this was the observation of him, that he was showing concern towards this. Okay, in other words, Adams believed that Britain's industrial revolution, which needed a lot of money, was helped in a part by wealth taken from India. Point later described West historian a stolen wealth from India. Okay, that means he was just stealing wealth from India by imposing unwanted restrictions, by imposing unwanted rules and regulations. So, now, building on the ideas of scholars like Adams and Debye, Indian leaders Dadabhai and Naroji wrote Poverty and Un-British Rule in India in 1901. Using British records, he calculated how much wealth had been taken from India. Around the same time, historians Ramesh Chandra Dutt did similar research in his Economic History of India. Their studies shows that the British took billions of pounds from India. Okay, so they are doing studies that how much exploitations Britishers are doing. So it was around millions of pounds of India, okay, which they exploited. Now, a modern study by Utsa Patrick estimate that between this time period about 45 million US dollars in India's value, around 13 times British total GDP was drained from India. Okay, so they exploited so much money from India, which they are talking about. Okay, now the country would have been far richer and more developed when it became independent. Okay, here that means if India's wealth did not exploited by Britishers, then our country became more far richer and more developed when it became independent. Okay, but unfortunately this was the Britishers rule who because of that our India has faced a lot of loss. Okay, next topic we have changing landscapes. The growing British rule affected almost every part of life in India because the colonialism believed their own ways were better and should be followed. Decline of Indian indigenous industries. Okay, before the okay, this line is written because they were imposing unwanted tax on farmers and were doing very harsh treatments. Now, before the 18th century, India was famous for its manufacturing special textiles like these. Okay, which is known for intricate designs, bright colors, fine muslins, and high demands worldwide. Okay, but British policies imposed heavy taxes on Indian textiles, exported Britishers while allowing British goods to India with low or no tax. Okay, that means they were exporting these goods to Britishers with no tax and almost to very low tax. Okay, which was hurting Indian traders because now they were not getting very benefit. That means they were not getting such benefit which was getting before during the time of 18th century. But after Britishers with no and low taxes, which was hurting Indian traders, and they were facing a lot of loss. Now, Britishers' control over sea trade and exchange rates made it hard for Indian traders to export, leading to the collapse of Indian textile industry. In the 9th century, India's textiles export dropped sharply, while Britishers' imports flooded India, pushing skilled artisans into poverty and forcing them on farmers on extended lands. Okay, that means they are trying to say that they were imposing the taxes, and this is how on sea roads also, when so much tax will increase, then poor Indians will not able to afford that fees, and this is how exportation will also decrease. Okay, and the product will not globally available to the peoples. Okay, this is how again a lot of loss was faced by Indians. Next, we have dismantling traditional governance structures. Now, before Britishers arrived, India had well-organized local governance. Village councils handled community matters, solved disputes, and took care of public works like irrigation and roads. Regional kingdoms also had detailed administration system that had developed over many centuries to meet local needs. Charles Metcalfe, enacting governance general in 1800, described the system and its efficiency to its important statements. Okay, these are the proofs that India was very well organized before Britishers. But Britishers gradually broke any traditional governance and replaced their own centralized memory, changed centuries local community managements, and started imposing their own rules and regulations, distanced ordinary people from courts, which became expensive because it was very expensive to go any court, ordinary court at such places. This is why they could not demand any justice from government. Transforming Indian education, creating brown Englishmen. Now, India had diverse English system like Pathshalas, Madras, Viharas, and apprenticeships teaching practical skills and cultural values. Britishers report in the early 19th century noted 1 lakh to 1 lakh 50,000 villages schools in Bengal and Bihar alone, where reading, writing, and math efficiency and very cheap amount. Thomas B. Macaulay, 1835, minute on Indian education, claimed European knowledge was superior, dismissing Indian literature despite their own lack of knowledge of Sanskrit or Arabic. He expressed his convictions that European knowledge was superior to India's. I have never found one among them who could deny that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. Macaulay's policy aimed to create Indians who were Indians in blood and color, but English in taste, opinions, morals, and intellectual, leading to decline of traditional schools. Okay, that means before Britishers, there were so many schools of Bengals. We have seen that such a high ratio, like Pathshalas, Madras, and in all places the traditional ways are teaches. Okay, teachers teach their traditional ways, maths, reading, writing, all these things were taught. But after British influence, okay, they started imposing their own educations. Okay, and this is how Indian traditions was started declining in schools. Clear? Next, we have reshaping economic structures to sever imperial needs. Clear? The Britishers turned to India's self-sufficient economy based on agriculture and class into supplier of raw material for British industries and market for British goods. The railway network, often praised as a colonial benefit, as built to move raw materials to ports and export distribute British goods, ignoring India's existing trade. Okay, that means they again ignore India's existing trade patterns. Railways also helped move Britishers to quick crush shipments of fine ports serving military needs. India tax revenue funded railway, telegraph, colonial administrations paid for exploitations. Okay, that means they, with railway networks, they quickly get able to do travelings with the system and were exploiting more and more. Okay, and impose a tax on Indians. Now, early resistance movement challenges colonial authority. India provided British with huge wealth, natural resources, and manpower, so that they called the jewel in the crown of British Empire. The British also claimed that India would always be part of their empire, the empire on which the sun never sets. Almost from the start of British conquest of India, people resisted to push back against the foreign rulers. We will look at some of these resistance movements, but first let's examine the map of the British Indian Empire given below. The red and pink area shows regions directly ruled by the Britishers. Okay, that means these red and pink areas, which you can see that almost all the parts are under this, okay, are exploited by the Britishers. Okay, while these yellow regions, which you can see, are princely state, which we talked about earlier. The black lines represented the railway networks, and these black lines railway networks helped East India Company a lot to board tradings. The Sannyasi Fakir Rebellion. The Sannyasi Fakir Rebellion began in Bengal after 770 famine caused by harsh British policies. Government of sannyasis and fakirs who travelled freely for pilgrimage and charity faced restrictions from British tax and land policies. Over 3 decades, they attacked British treasuries and tax collectors. Through their exact motives are debated. The British labelled them bandits, executed some, and used superior forces to defeat them. The rebellions later inspired the Bengal writers Bankim Chandra Chatterjee novels Andamath 1882. It contained the song Vande Mataram, which would inspire Indians during the struggle of freedom in the early 20th century, and after independence became India's national song. Okay, that means they even did not allow these what we call it, sannyasi. Okay, the Indian Britishers did not even allow sannyasi to roam here and there and spread their knowledge. This kind of harsh restrictions was present at that time, and this not only this, when they were struggling for the freedom of India, they also applied with Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. Vande Mataram song was written, which is now our national song, and during the freedom struggle time, they also helped so many Indians to motivate and fight for their independence. Next, we have tribals uprising. Okay, now tribals are old peoples who completely depend on natures, and they worship God of nature itself. Okay, they did not believe on any other thing. They only believe and praise nature. Okay, Now they also faced many challenges when British moved forests and hills, okay, distributing their traditional way of life. The British often called tribals primitive, limited their access to forest and forest products to tribal lands and imposed cash taxes, okay. That means now Indians cannot use their own nature, okay. For that also they are imposing tax on that. That means tribal who completely depend on nature, for that also they have to pay tax, okay. They were caught in debt trip, okay, that because they did not able to give so much tax. Their councils were replaced by British court, okay. They converted, that means tribals were converted into Christianity. A colonial law even labeled many tribes as criminal tribes, leading to unjust harassment for decades. The coal uprising in Chota Nagpur, which is now in Jharkhand, was sparked by land policies favoring outsiders, while Kol tribes briefly controlling areas before Britishers forcing defeated them. The Santhal rebellion in Jharkhand, Bihar, and West Bengal, led by brothers Sidhu and Kanu Murmuru, opposed moneylenders and landlords backed by Britishers. The Santhals declared their government going to fight the end, but the Britishers burned villages. Okay, now Santhals were trying to fight with Britishers, but before that, Britishers burned the villages of Santhals, and in this, so many thousands of people were died, including the leaders. Okay, including those leaders who were inspiring tribal communities to motivate and fight against Britishers. Okay, so this with this limit, Britishers were doing whatever they want, and no kind of any equality and such kind of democracy existed. Okay, as you can see, so many people died in this. Okay, because they burned the entire village of Santhals. Peasants uprising against economic exploitations. Okay, now peasants, definitely everyone suffered unfair British revenue system, offering losing land to moneylenders or without famines. Okay, in the Indigo revolt in North Bengal, so European planters forced peasants to grow indigo instead of food. Okay, that means they were forcing planters to grow indigo, and in that also they have to give 50% to Britishers. Okay, because they are allowing to grow indigo in that areas. Okay, that means if peasants don't want to grow indigo, they were growing indigo because it was ordered by Britishers. Okay, and with this, peasants were poorly paid, trapped in debt, faced tortures because indigo was in demand in Europe, so they were telling Indians to grow indigo only, and with this they first torture. If they don't grow indigo, then they first torture, imprisonment, or property restrictions for refusing to grow indigo. Okay, they targeted planters who attacked peasants but supported educated Bengalis, and press forced British to curb some abuses. Many other uprisings occurs across India, building towards major 1857 rebellions. Okay, and the 1857 rebellions is the reason of this because planters were facing so much exploitations by Britishers. Okay. Now we have the Great Rebellion of 1857. That means until we were talking about this happened. Now let's study what actually happened. A massive uprising of sepoys and civilians across northern and central India challenged Britishers, marking a turning point of fight against foreign dominations. The Britishers called it Sepoy Mutiny, but post-independence historians prefer Great Rebellion of 1857. It involved just sepoys, Indian soldiers of the British, mostly farmer families, were frustrated by Britishers' land revenue policies that caused hardship, as we saw in the case of indigo. Early signs of unrest included the Vellore mutiny in Tamil Nadu, where sepoys revolted against new uniform rules banning religious marketing required shape beards of funding Hindu and Muslim beliefs. Okay, this is how they created a difference between peoples of Hindu and Muslims. Okay, which has now existed also. They seized Vellore, now Tamil Nadu, killed many British officers and troops, but the Britishers crushed the revolt, killing of executive hundreds of people. Okay, because they were raising voice against the Britishers. Okay. Next we have the rebellion unfolds. Now a Barrackpore, which is now in West Bengal, spoils Mangal Pandey. Okay, spoil Mangal Pandey, attacked British officers and executes police more unrest. In Meerut, Uttar Pradesh, spoils killed their British officers, marched to Delhi, and declared Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar an elderly figurehead with little powers, as their trade through military decisions were made by commanders. Okay, now this revolt spread in north and central parts of India. Okay, and sepoys capturing the cities like Jhansi, Kanpur, okay, and Lucknow, such cities. Okay, and in Kanpur, Nana Sahib was ruling, who initially promised that they would save British civilians, but later massacred over 200 men, women, and children were event still debated for its causes. Okay, massacre is something when in a large scale a kind of murder happen. Okay, that means massacre in a large ground when so many people kill. That is called massacre. Okay. Now we are moving to the next topic, that is British response. Okay, now this revolt was spreading in north and central parts of India. So many people were killing. Okay, many are worst. Okay, now what is the British response towards this? Okay, so obviously British response was brutal because they wanted to exploit the resources and did not able to fulfill the demands of Indians. Okay, so they started recapture of Delhi in September 1857, where they conducted house to house massacres. Okay, that means house to house they were doing a brutal treatment. Okay, in Kanpur they held mass execution to terrorize people, and their long campaign burning villages, destroyed crops. Okay, that means they were destroying entire crops and villages in response of Indians. Now, what is the reason of failures and impact? Okay, we all know that 1857 rebellion was failed. Okay, we did not get independence during that time. So why it was failed? Because due to spoils, lack of unified command and consistent strategy despite brave leaders. Okay, so we had brave leaders, but we did not have unified command and a consistent strategy to gain that success. Okay, now though unsuccessful, the rebellion planted the idea that foreign rulers were unacceptable, inspiring 20th century freedom struggle with new methods. Okay, however, this rebellion was unsuccessful, but still a good thing is that in humans, in Indians, a sense of independence, the idea of this was created, which helped in later to gain independence. Okay, however, this was unsuccessful, but this created a strong mindset inside Indians that we can get independence, and whatever Britishers are trading with them is unacceptable. Okay. Now, British Crown took direct control of India from East India Company, initiating period of the British Raj. Okay, that means now British Raj was was more spreading. British policy is shifting from aggressive territorial expansion to consolidation of control. Okay, now they are started directing control of Indians. Okay, the Indian armies were reorganized to prevent future unified resistance. Okay, that means they were using Indian armies to prevent themselves. Okay. Uh, you can read the stories of these two women. Okay, now the legacy of European colonialism in India. Okay, now the European, mostly British, they are talking about conquest of India was not really a civilizing mission, because India's civilization was much older than Europe's. Instead, it was a process of control and exploitation carried out systematically with brutal force when needed. Okay, most Indian successful role in British rule face the same hardship that many colonies people experience: abuse, exploitation, violence, and disruption of their lives. Okay, so these were the methods which British were using to control Indians directly. Okay, however, they also established some court and police systems. Okay, not in order to help Indians, in order to get good control on Indians. Okay. Now, unintended consequences. Colonial rule opened India to world and vice versa under the British and French documenting Indian democracy, ethics, and monuments. Britishers always mapped the subcontinent, but their ethnic lists were flawed due to unscientific ideas of race, now disproven by genetics. They studied and restored some Indian monuments, started archaeology, but stole thousands of statues, paintings, jewelers, and manuscripts, sending them to European museums or private colleges. Okay, so what they were actually doing, they were using the resources of Indians and they were sending to their own country. That means they were using all the good things like monuments and paintings of Indians, because you all know that from the beginning, India is very rich of literature and architecture. So they captured all the good things of India and were sending those things directly to the European museums. Okay, this caused of profound loss of India's heritage. Obviously, India's heritage is getting losing by losing these important monuments, but increased European appreciation of Indian art, sparking debates today about reprinting tea streets. Okay, so the good thing was that Europeans were very interested by looking these Indian arts. Okay. Now, cultural exchange. The British began translating Sanskrit texts to European languages. Okay, because in India, you all know that Sanskrit is a very traditional and a sculptural language. Okay, but they were translating the Sanskrit into European languages. Okay, followed by the French and German with mixed motives. Some admired Indian culture, while others aimed to prove Christianity superiority. Okay, that means they were doing this to prove this Christianity superiority, but some believe that this is admiring the Indian culture. These translations later included other Indian languages, were described by German philosophers George Hegel as the discovery of a new continent. Indian text influenced European philosophers, writers, poets, artists, and even American thinkers in the 19th century, showing that cultural influence could flow opposite to political dominations. Okay, that means they were attacking on the cultural influence of Indians. Okay, but this is where they were starting to do political dominance, but happened opposite. Okay, so this was all about in this chapter that how Britishers came to India, what are the changes happened in India, and how smartly they captured all the things and used Indian resources. Okay, so here about this 1857 rebellion chapter completes. I hope you understood the chapter. Thank you.